Greetings to you viewers from across the globe. You're welcome to the show Viewpoint, where we discover perspectives and embrace dialogue. I'm your host, Ihiagwa AI.
I am Elizabeth Fidelis. Recently, kidnapping has been on the rise, causing great unrest for Nigerians and the federal government. Kidnappers have demanded 100 million ransom in exchange for the release of 5 pupils and 4 staff members who were kidnapped from Faith Apostolic School in Ekiti State, while dead bodies were found in Imo State. So we are going to be taking a quick dive into what we are going to be reviewing in the course of today's episode of the Viewpoint show: kidnappings in Ekiti State, decomposing body found in Ihiagwa forest in Imo State, and the rescue of a 17-year-old boy in Ogun State.
Join us in the next phase of the show. Before you do that, do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Veegil Media, and follow us across various social media platforms. Welcome back to the show. I'm Ihiagwa AI for Viewpoint, where we discover perspectives and embrace dialogue. Yeah, Elizabeth, concerning this kidnapping spree, what do you have for us? Because this recent occurrence in Ekiti State, Imo State, it's been quite occurrent in the 90s in the Middle Belt. Now it has actually grown into a monetized venture.
Exactly.
What's your take on it for me?
Well, Ihiagwa, it is no news that Nigeria continues to battle with insecurity across the 36 states of the Federation. And during the regime of ex-President Goodluck Jonathan, over 276 Chibok girls were abducted from a community called Chibok. I don't know if you remember that case, which ended the popular name Bring Back Our Chibok Girls.
The hashtag Bring Back Our Girls.
In subsequent governments, kidnapping has worsened. I mean, it has spiraled out of control. Just on Monday, we heard the news of 5 pupils and 4 staff who were kidnapped right from a school bus after 5 minutes drive from the school in Ekiti State. And also in Ihiagwa forest, that's Owerri West local government of Imo State, 2 dead bodies were found. So with this current increase in kidnapping, what is your comment on kidnapping rampage in the country? And Ihiagwa, why do you think it has escalated to this point over the years?
Well, to begin with, kidnapping began in Nigeria in different phases. Okay. Let's start with the ritualist aspect. That was in the late 80s, early 90s. Now, people were doing that. Why? Because they needed money. That was for selfish purpose. Now, it transited and became an aggravated venture in the oil region, particularly Port Harcourt, Bayelsa, Edo State, or Delta. And then some instances, in short, in summary, oil-producing regions. That was where the kidnapping all began. And if we remember, it was targeted mainly at the high-profile citizens in that region. Why? Because they needed money and the regions were not developed.
Exactly.
And for kidnapping to actually take place, something must actually happen. When the pastor wakes up in the morning to give his or her morning devotion, there's a reason. When you wake up in the morning to brush your teeth, there's a reason. Yes. When you take your shower, there's a reason. So kidnapping will not just take place if there is no reason. And what's the reason that kidnapping is actually taking place? It is probably because there are no jobs. Let's not forget the aspect whereby political opponents are dissatisfied with the outcome of elections. They go employing assassins or machineries to make sure that they kidnap certain high-profile citizens, or maybe they hit you hard where it hurts the most by maybe kidnapping the mother or kidnapping the child. And that destabilizes your political campaign. Exactly. So kidnapping now started like metamorphosing into a different thing. Now as we speak, now the country now is worsening. Now it's entered into a different direction, or it's taking a different tone. As it's taking a different direction. Why? Because people are currently hungry. Because previous administrations have impoverished the nation. And now as we speak now, because of that, people have no other means than to cut corners or look for the next shortcut. And kidnapping is another shortcut. And exactly. The demand for large sums running from tens of millions to hundreds of millions. Now the demand for billions. And before they even execute these kidnapping or abduction processes, they must have carried out their background checks concerning even the profile of that person. Oftentimes, for instance, let's use the Ekiti State incident. Can we pull that video up of Honorable Rotimi.
Okay.
First of all, let me introduce myself, Mr. Speaker. My name is Ekiti Jr., and I represent the good people of Ekiti North 1 federal constituency comprising Ikole and Oye local governments. Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to present this motion of urgent national importance on the criminality currently ravaging Ekiti State. The House notes that there has been an increase in criminal activities in Ekiti North 1 federal constituency in recent times, resulting in the loss of lives and property. The House also notes that the constituency is exposed to peculiar security challenges due to the nature of our forests and topography, and more painfully because Ekiti federal roads are some of the most dilapidated in the entire country. Further notes that on Monday, January 29, 2024, these criminals carried out a dastardly attack in the Okeako area. In Ikole local government area, resulting in the death of 2 traditional rulers. The Onimojo of Imojo Ekiti, Oba.
I've been trying so hard not to laugh at that.
You've been trying so hard not to laugh. A distinguished honorable is crying and you want to laugh.
I just feel it's more like a drama to me.
Well, how will you address it now as a drama?
I mean, with this, he just said something that most of their roads are actually bad. That means nobody is doing anything about those roads, and we have people who have come into power. So I just feel all these things are actually a way of, bringing or making people to feel so much pity and all that.
So the kidnapping or abduction spree is a Showmax episode.
I mean, this man's what he's actually doing right now.
Well, not to object to that actually. I will feel like I began by saying targets are mostly high-profile citizens. Now, as we speak now, you could hear traditional rulers were abducted and killed. Now, those traditional rulers on their own part, oftentimes, let me use the South-South, for instance. It's common knowledge that funds were being disbursed to those communities. But the who is who, the high and mighty, the timber and caliber, in that axis, will amass these funds, and instead of using it for the communities, will definitely use it for their own selfish benefits. And that was what now instigated the kidnappings by the militants, starting from the expatriates. Now it has entered a political space now whereby they are attacking the who is who in government from the federal level to the local level.
However, if I should get it correctly, you are only speaking on the side of those people, those people you just mentioned. What happened to those kids, the 5 pupils and the staff members? Now you made a statement. You said they do background check and they only abduct people with high profile or those who have money. What happens to these kids, these pupils that were actually kidnapped? And if I'm guessing correctly, they should be within the age of 6 to 12 years. Okay. And there were about 25 pupils on that box. So when these kidnappers stopped them, they only picked 5 pupils and they took up 4 staff members. Now, and they are demanding, according to a news source, they called one of the family members of the kidnapped and demanded for 100 million ransom. Are you trying to tell me that these pupils that were actually kidnapped by the kidnappers are also coming from families of high-profile people in the society? And don't you think it's actually cruel for them to have kidnapped those pupils?
First of all, I won't oppose to the fact that it was not cruel. It's cruel, all right. And anybody who actually do that should not even serve life imprisonment. He should face capital punishment. Now, that is aside. Now, secondly, I began by saying that they must have carried out their background checks. Now, it could be that those 5 people abducted now must come from high-profile families.
Okay.
And being abducted, those 5 people being abducted, they actually must have left some other people. That's why I began by saying they must have done their background check.
All right.
They must have also definitely gone to as far as even knowing what time that bus passes to make. I was watching a film the other time, White Lion, And it was a documentary on the kidnappings in Kogi State. Ali knew who was the protagonist there. Now, they don't just do it because they want to do it. They do it why? Because they've been hit so hard by the government, not taking care of the community, and they resort to other means, taking laws into their hands, which of course is not the way out, because the citizens now begin to suffer it at the end of the day. I began by saying they were targeting politicians now, but because hunger has set in, everyone is frustrated now. They now begin to resort to innocent citizens who are influential, quietly minding their businesses.
I still don't agree that of all the pupils or people that were actually kidnapped, we have people from high-profile families, or maybe their father have a high position. I feel because kidnapping is not just about people. Nowadays kidnappers even go to the mile of kidnapping people from poor families and demand this kind of ransom. Where would they get that kind of money?
Well, to answer that question, is like a kingpin who goes into the streets and he goes to hunt for vulnerable people to join his cabal or his clique or his goons, let me put it that way. So it could be, if you remember, we did an episode on illegal mining. It could be that they're not just targeting influential families alone, they're also targeting poor families to also work in their illegal mines, to indulge in illicit activities. That's another way to look at it. Okay. So kidnapping, it's diverse and there are so many reasons behind the abductions.
All right, so if I should get you correctly, you're trying to say that these people, they do background check. So they already know. I mean, they have been observing that, these people leave school this time and all that, because according to the principal in his this thing, he disclosed that it was just like the boss left the school, like 5 minutes drive away from the school was when this happened. That's people who were actually, they gave this statement. Now, I would like to think that there's actually a malicious purpose like these kidnappers have for them to have come. Why did they leave this kidnapping till Monday or till 2024? They could have done it maybe last year or something like that. So do you feel that there's actually a malicious purpose for these kidnappers kidnapping those people?
Well, secondly, I just mentioned a few reasons back then. Number two, anyone who wants to do a thing needs to plan. You watch your foreign films, even when a hitman has to take out one person, he plans towards it. Yeah. Even up to the point of even shooting his target, he has to measure the range which he will have to take and the convenient position and at what time he will actually take that shot. So these people must have actually done their planning. During the Yuletide season, it was a Christmas, schools will definitely be on holidays. So it will be a case of the place being dry, and being a community, I don't know how well they celebrate Christmas there. The place might be dry or the place might be bubbling. That's another question. Now, schools have resumed. And if schools have resumed, that's when they will now decide to go on rampage. Now, abduction doesn't even end with these innocent children also. Yes. They might want to bring them on board, whether male or female, to also establish or proliferate their own population. For instance, you have 4 people, you want to go, maybe 4 people have offended you and you want to go and fight. You as a one-man army might not succeed. So you will need other people to stand behind you to face 4 people. So if you have like 8 people behind you facing 4 people, I think you're equal to the task. So these people, they know that they cannot face the government. They cannot face the government. The government, no doubt about that, is actually working tirelessly hard with security operatives and agencies to combat abductions. It's ongoing, but there are people who are actually sponsoring these activities.
That's another angle to that. I did not really think in that direction. All right. Okay. So we have actually dwelt a bit much on this Ekiti case. Let's move on over to the dead bodies. All right. The dead bodies that was found in Imo State. This is actually a kind of a presumption also. If you check these dead bodies that were found, all right, they said 2 bodies were found by police at the forest, and it seems like there's actually a relationship between kidnapping and forest. It seems to be that most of these kidnappers they just they camp in forest areas, all right, and then from there they actually plan, like you said, they have to take time to plan and order before they make their move. Now, do you feel that the local security of that particular community, they're not actually doing their work? Because if they're actually doing their work, they should be able to fish out or, catch these people or maybe, arrest them, something like that.
Well, to start with, now these security operatives, it doesn't matter whether it's the police or the army or the navy or the air force or Amotekun or maybe even Eastern Security Network. One thing is germane or important. that is intel, and how you handle the intel matters a lot. If you go, let's say for instance, I was watching a film, and in this film, this particular man was a police officer.
Okay.
He had to go undercover by deceiving people that he was a man of God to actually infiltrate a particular area. Now, he succeeded in doing that, but he refused to let the wife know. He received all sorts of insults from the wife. Why? Because he didn't want to let the wife know, because the wife was a loudmouth. Now, if he had disclosed his operations to the wife innocently would have innocently told one of her customers in a hairdressing salon. So how you handle intel is what's important. Now, starting from the locals who are there, some residents are aware of what is going on, but they are afraid or too scared for their lives. That's number one. Secondly, they might be benefiting from these illicit activities. That's another thing.
In what way? Sorry, in what way?
Now, when they abduct, for instance, and probably someone is being, let's say, for instance, the ransom is paid.
Okay.
Let's say 100 million or 200 million or 500 million, depending on the hundreds of millions involved or demanded. Right. Now, such funds, when it's being given to the abductors or kidnappers, they will definitely seal the mouths of people. Hold this one, hold this one, hold this one. And that's corruption going on. Instead of disclosing, okay, social activities is going here. That's why the police, even when they even are successful in catching these kidnappers, will say and reiterate that if the residents are armed with information, they should disclose. But people cannot even trust the police because of what has happened in the past.
Exactly.
And they cannot even have that 100% witness protection from the police, who is meant to preserve lives and properties. So each stakeholder, starting from even the residents, the security agencies, and those in the helms or corridors of power, everyone has a stake on this.
Yeah. All right, please, can we have the picture of those dead bodies? Can we have it? Odewa, so
I think there's a video to that effect.
All right, so we're going to come to that, but I actually have some questions I want to ask you about this. Can you actually recount or tell us what actually happened in this case?
Well, with this, actually, it happened in Owerri West, Ihiagwa, Imo State. Now, these bodies must have been there for a very long period of time. They are actually decomposed. Now, it therefore means that there are two things I'm suspecting here. Okay. It's either for them to be two persons actually discovered. It might be a case of kidnapping, and maybe a case of murder which was actually accomplished. Okay. It could either be of two things, but according to police reports, it's an abduction case. Until the DNA test is being conducted to detect whether there were some strangulations or maybe someone failed to pay a ransom, that's why they eliminated. These are the two deductions I can make. Okay, and from your report or like from your findings, have they been able to, arrest those people, the suspected kidnappers? I want to believe police is on top of the situation. Yeah. All right, so we can have the video come up right now. So let's see. Okay. All right. So this is exactly the chief command of police for the Imo State, and is actually leading people to where they found the dead bodies that are decomposing in the forest. You can see something there already being uncovered. Yes. The belongings of the dead bodies, I believe.
Leading the operation to the forest, the commissioner of police.
I mean, this is so scary, don't you think so?
It's scary, but for the police force who are well trained, I don't believe it should be gory enough, because I don't believe they've seen more or worse than that.
I mean, for us as citizens, because everybody is currently wondering, am I going to be the next? I mean, you can't just even move out from your house without even being scared that you might be the next person.
That should now be that we should advise ourselves and even those in public that we need to be security conscious.
Exactly.
Because even those who are meant to even protect us are also human beings.
Right. Okay, so moving on to the next issue that we need to be checking and, probing is, okay, can I have that, statistics come up of unemployment? I mean, the current unemployment rate in Nigeria has moved from 4.1% to 4.20%, which is actually a drastic move. That is to say that so many people are unemployed, especially youth, which form the major population of the Nigerian country. And so, which is why I feel a lot of those people are forced to find a means of livelihood by engaging in kidnapping acts. And this brings me to ask you this question, Odiawa. Why do kidnappers demand such huge ransom they kidnap somebody and they're asking for 50 million. Where do I get 50 million to pay?
I began by saying they do their background checks.
Okay.
That's one. On the other side, the elites are the main problem.
All right.
When you're to talk, you don't talk. You keep quiet. Why? Because of what you're benefiting. So those you have denied, the good book actually says an idle mind is the devil's workshop. They begin to look for how to improvise other means, whether positive or negative, to make ends meet. Why? Because they need to take care of their basic necessities of life, food, shelter, and clothing. Now, money which you didn't work for, you go spending it lavishly. Now, that's another question. They demand for this huge sum because they know these people are capable of doing it. And another thing is that probably even this elite, maybe they are the kinds who do not stretch hands. Let's come down to local parlance now.
Yeah, true.
There are some other influential people who stretch their hands. Maybe they set up foundations, or maybe they are going on the road. We see all this on social media where someone can just take the initiative to come down from his luxurious 20 million naira car or 60 million naira car and dashes maybe someone frying this local bully on the road.
Exactly.
A bundle. So those kind of people, evil hands can't get on them.
Okay.
Kidnappers' hands can't get on them. Why? Because they are immune to those things. But it doesn't mean that they are not. Why? Because somebody can definitely or deliberately perpetrate ill acts. Now, this kidnapping will not stop until insecurity concerning joblessness is actually addressed. Now, these people, AC. Now, these people in question now, the thing is, whenever they come on board, they hide in remote areas.
Exactly.
And if security agencies can actually come on board to look for how they can address, and not just the security agencies, because it's actually the government who actually furnish them with equipment and the actual regalia. Some years ago, it cost a security personnel in the US $6,000 to dress.
Whoa.
With the the bulletproof, the cameras on the helmet, whether it's the army or even the police, or even the radios they need to dispatch information, or even in the cars, which they are fitted cameras there, so at least they can record on the go. So I want to believe definitely now it has increased. So it is not only at the federal level that, or maybe at Aso Rock, where you have to pass each gate, that security should actually be effective. It should not be at the confluence boundary from Kogi State and Abuja, where the security should be tightened, where you have to cross so many checks. Security should be everywhere in totality or in entirety.
I agree with you on that. Just yesterday, while we were still trying to recover from the kidnapping case that happened on Monday, a 17-year-old boy was rescued by Social Orientation and Safe Corps in Ogun State here. And you know the amazing thing is that the kidnappers demanded 1.5 million ransom. And so it's actually very intriguing that I feel that this nefarious act of kidnappers or people who actually join this, perpetrate the act of kidnapping is actually fueled by the fact that the government is not doing anything. Let me make reference to what Danjuma Aboki said, all right?
Commissioner for
Yes.
Police.
He said these dead bodies that were found, they have arrested, 5 people. Now, I feel that apart from just parading people like suspects or criminals, kidnappers, asking them to hold this kind of placards where they have to say, I made this and all that. I feel that something extreme or something more like severe punishment should actually be done to them. So it has to also show those people that, if you're trying to do this, you should not do it because these are we intend to punish people. So, Odewa, what do you have to say? Do you just feel that there should actually be a more severe punishment that will scare maybe prospective kidnappers, because there are people that actually are going to be prospective, they are planning theirs also after seeing that nothing is done to kidnappers?
Well, to begin with the fee or the amount that was charged, 1.5 million, I want to address or call those kidnappers as kidnappers who are still in the embryo stage.
They're learning.
They're learning, actually. Let's put in local balance. Now, you demanding 1.5 million, it means that you're new in the game.
Exactly.
So these culprits should be easily caught. Putting up placards like addressing them, writing their names as if they caught them for cybercrime as EFCC does, that is not actually the solution.
Okay.
I will actually prefer some solutions whereby capital punishment.
Can you elaborate on that?
That means they should totally be executed.
Okay.
But that is not actually favorable. The second option I'll actually prefer should be that upon apprehension, they should be kept in seclusion. And when being kept in seclusion, they should actually extract information from them. It is with that information they will know how to operate, just as the US does. The US will never eliminate a high-profile criminal. They will keep that person, take care of that person. I want to know how these people operate and see how they can even advance on existing information. So that is the intel you will get to know how you arraign all these kind of kidnappers. We watch foreign films, we see the kidnappings which are going on. It's kind of similar to that of what's happening in the northern part of Nigeria. Similar thing happening around Eastern Africa. It's the same thing that's replicated in South. So it's all about how you handle the person who is involved in this abduction exercise.
Okay, so now what would be the way forward? What would be the way forward? Would you advise that affected states should team up with security guards, like we have the local vigilantes that guide streets and all that? Now, will you advise that, or will you advise? Let me put it this way: is it advisable that the federal government should set up a kind of local security team like we have in Lagos and Motekun that can actually guide these local communities? Because I feel that kidnappers are actually focused on these places where there are minimum security. All right. So is it advisable, or would you tell the federal government that they should set up some local security that can actually, monitor this environment, and in case they sense any suspicious movement, they can actually catch those people?
Now, let's start with it. I don't think security should end with even the security agencies themselves.
Okay.
That's why even you see some people when they build their houses, you have all sorts of bulletproof gates or doors. You have bulletproof cars. But that is not enough to even save your life or prevent abduction from being taking place. Another thing is, the country has always vouched for state policing over the decades. It's part of the plans for restructuring.
Okay.
Now, the police cannot do everything. That is why the setup of all these community security apparatus are coming up. Just like the social orientation safety corps in Ogun State. You have Amotekun, which is all around the southwestern part now as we speak. If you go to the east now, the same thing. If you go to south, the same thing. You go to the north. Now, but these people, another thing is, for these activities to actually be taking place, it therefore means that they might definitely have an insider.
Okay.
That's where intel is really important. Now, if you have an insider now, it makes the job totally complex. Now, the situation whereby you have an insider leaking out information, it becomes, the nation actually will find itself in quagmire. So the result should be, number one, state policing should actually be adopted ASAP as soon as possible.
Okay.
Then secondly, individuals on their own part should have local police, just like you have in the US where they have the sheriff. Then the security agencies should actually be furnished with security apparatus. I see our police vans, they don't have cameras, except for Lagos. And even in Lagos, it's just probably in some niches, like maybe Alausa. The street lights, they have their cameras. So each state needs to adopt this Lagos idea and replicate it in their states. Then we should also have surveillance, for instance, drones. Drones should also be there to actually cover these areas because most of them hide in forest. And this forest region should be in a particular state which actually has boundaries. That's another thing. And then also checkmating the influx of people from porous borders, whether via sea or on land. The air is trying, fine. The aviation sector is trying. But we're talking about land here. It's quite porous. You can just buy your way into the country. So these are the three things I would feel or think maybe should be checkmated before kidnapping can be resolved. And not that the government cannot do it. They can do it.
They can, of course. And to add to what you have said, I also feel that the media can also come in place here. If we have the media put up programs that can educate, local people, especially in rural areas, or even people living in the urban city where kidnapping also happen in broad daylight. If you can have the media come in, putting up programs like this Viewpoint show, where they educate people on what to do when such a thing happens, or how they can actually be security conscious to avoid cases like this coming up. And so that is all we have for today on the Viewpoint show.
I'm Odell AI, and it's been a very lengthy show on kidnapping. particularly zeroing in on Ekiti State, which is a recent occurrence, and also Imo State, Ihiagwa, Owerri West to be specific. I'm Adiawa AI once again.
I'm
With me,
Elizabeth Fidelis.
I'll see you when you see me. Thanks for watching. But before you do that, do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Veegil Media, and follow us across various social media platforms.